So let's start, I guess, with if anyone has any questions about either the 3 ayahs or any of the surahs we've done. Okay, and then we'll go ahead.
I should have one small question of clarification and one question actually a little bit longer. You said the Sarmadiyya, I think is that referred to in Nashut?
Sorry, I probably misspoke. In Nashut, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so what does Sarmadiyya specifically mean?
No, Sarmadi is a word used to often refer to Hayat al-Barzakh, but it even have a more specific meaning that it is between the here now in Nasud, this world, and the world of al-Barzakh. It is possible to experience a state of al-bayn al-baynayn, that a state of, especially if in, so I'll give you an example of what a sarmadi state would be. Recently I was talking to someone who his salah and dhikr is such that he starts lower prayer and he becomes so engulfed in lower prayer that when he becomes aware, it has become Asr prayer. That would be a sarmadi state. It's a state where you experience existence without the factor of time or sometimes space. That same person in his ibadah, he's been separated from his loved ones forever. So when in his dua, he actually experiences that he visits his family members, sees them one by one, hugs them, sits with them, and then when he comes out of it, what he saw is the state they're actually in. That would be described as a sarmadi state. So it is a term used, and I probably misspoke and I meant it Nasut and I said a sarmadi. And actually, I think especially Iraqis will they use it as a name Sarmad.
I've heard the name.
Yeah. Which is referring to that state. Sometimes you find it also used in love poetry, but that is more that, you know, I love you so much that I've experienced my state as Sarmadi, that I am like as if I've been disconnected from the affairs of this world and your love. Which, according to Ibn Hazm, is possible.
Thank you.
I'll take it from him.
What did Ibn Hazm say is possible?
He said that it's a state of, he divides love into types, and one of his types is a love that takes you in a state of sarmad. But it doesn't have to do with God, it's just that you lose touch with time, place, and space, and you're so in love that you don't experience the affairs of this world anymore. And the husband says that it often leads to madness. So, you know, Ibn Hazm must have experienced a lot of very intense love. It's really interesting. I don't know if you ever read Tuq al-Hanam. It's a fascinating book.
My theory is that that's how he became bitter. It was a heartbreak.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a good point.
But he talks about it in Tuq al-Hanam. Well, he doesn't get dumped or anything, but he talks about his infatuation.
Yeah, that is true. But I read Tuq al-Hanam years ago, so I forgot. But he talks a lot of heartbreak, about a lot of heartbreak. But then what was your other?
Another question was, when you mentioned the hadith of Khadija and that you said you don't really believe in of qala, of like Allah's
Qala.
you qala. It got me thinking about how do you perceive Surah Al-Lahab when they say Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa tab, as a referring to an event that happened, that Abu Lahab came to Muhammad and said Tabbat yadak or something like that, like curse your hands.
Yeah.
How do you kind of reconcile that? Do you view that as a true statement or true event that happened versus not viewing that as a true event that happened?
I mean, of course, it's not. Okay. Tabbat yadak was a much more common expression among Arabs in pre-Islamic Arabia than qala or qalaq. So it wouldn't be surprising that when the Quran uses Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa tab, that's not that remarkable, because Tabbat was a very common expression, but that's one. But the other thing is, it would not at all surprise me if the exchange that Abu Lahab said, well, when we know that Abu Lahab said a lot of derogatory and hurtful things to the Prophet, a lot of different things. Now, it wouldn't, after the fact, is it possible that the way it was remembered is that Abu Lahab used the word tabbat, while in fact what he said could have been very different? I mean, I don't exclude that possibility, although, I mean, even the riwayah about with the I don't, how to put this, I don't put much weight on Abu Lahab using a precise word, Tabbat yadak, because actually even if Abu Lahab said that to the Prophet ﷺ, that's not that offensive. And I mean, he said far more hurtful things than that. And we have reports that يعيره بأنه يتيم, he called him a kazzab, he accused him of being mentally defective, accused him of being insane, he called him majnoon. So, did he use that imprecise word? No, but I have a problem with reports that where, for instance, we get into more serious grounds where it will say something like, and then Abu Bakr said such and such, and so the Quranic revelation came using these precise words. And the Quranic expression or the Quranic terminology is unusual for that context, for that language, then it's problematic. And especially when the hadith that tell us the narrative are always ahad. I mean, I don't remember whether the hadith about Abu Lahab, it is mutawatir that Abu Lahab would insult the Prophet in all types of horrible ways, but whether he used tabbat is mutawatir or not, I don't remember, and I don't know. But anyway, I mean, it's not a categorical point. It's a point where you're analyzing material. It's part of what you add to the evidence in analyzing whether in fact this is that hadith like Khadija has a lot of other problems, including, for instance, that we don't have any context in which no one claims to have actually heard Khadija say it to the Prophet. And the persons who narrated, it is such a small number of people, and it is not clear why the Prophet would tell them that while companions were far more prominent and closer, didn't narrate it, and doesn't come through their turuq. A lot of them, especially the narration of Khadija, has missing links in the chains, and there's no explanation for these missing links, or they have missing links in some versions, and then we find what is a generic name inserted instead of the missing link in different versions. The generic names, the go-to type of ruwa, or the people that everyone would mention that no one was quite sure who they were, is always a problem when you look at this now. So there are a lot of things like that.
If no one has questions, we could open to whining on the hedge.
No, you want to get to the whining on the hedge. I know that. No, give people a chance. She has her own. She's been like fuming about Hajj now.
It's unfair.
It's just a point of clarification. If I understood you correctly, you said that in pre-Islamic poetry, you do find the Arabs referencing nature prior to getting to the substance of an issue, and then you were talking about how that the Quran is also talking about the reference to nature, and that caught the attention of the Arabs. Is it that the dynamics of treating nature is what caught their attention?
Yeah, the references to nature were not the way the Quran did it in terms of relating nature to the substance of what comes later. So as Arabs listen to the Quran by their eloquence in Arabic, they knew, for instance, where it says وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى, that there is a connection, I would say philosophical connection, between the night and day and the fact that your God comes to you and refrains from coming to you. And in fact, some of the very earliest commentaries on this say, you know, this is remarkable. This is exactly like even the state of one's iman. At times you feel very close to Allah, and at times you feel not close to Allah. It's as if at times you are in the day and sometimes at night. We find this in tafsirs like Tafsir Ibn Abbas, you know, some of the very early. So their musical ear understood that this reference to nature has a connection with what will come in the surah. That it wasn't just saying, the way the typical pre-Islamic poem would use nature is, it would say, there are a people, هناك قوم, you know, there are a people whose sun shines, you know, and then we'll say a few words about the power of the sun, and then and you know that it's a point of bragging. He wants to tell you that these people there, and then he might connect it by, you know, by saying, and they are so generous that when they cook, their fires that they light up to cook their meals are so extensive, it's like the sun. That's the way they would refer to the nature. So that they're so generous that their cooking pots become like a sun. But the way that the Quran referred to nature, it's closer, if you want a closer, it's a way that a Greek philosopher might look at nature. The way that the sophists might look at nature as which later on became very influential in the development of natural law philosophy. I mean, building upon especially the Aristotelian tradition. The Mu'tazila, who, not many of their tafsirs survived, but Zamakhshari himself was a Mu'tazili, thought that often they referred to that as the proof of the Quran is Aristotelian, that the Quran, when it itself was telling them, when the Ash'aris would, or the Ahl Hadith especially, would attack the Mu'tazila as un-Islamic, they say, how can you say it un-Islamic when the Quran itself is Aristotelian? And what they meant by that is that it is nature-based. It tells us to reflect upon nature, and that nature teaches us about creation, and reflecting on that tells us what we need to know about the meaning of our lives and our relationship to Allah. And so, but long before the Mu'tazila, the musical ear of the Arab picked on these connections between qasam. Otherwise, when the Quran starts out, for example, by saying Ha Mim, if you wanted, if that didn't make sense musically to the Arab, they would have immediately said, this is like Israelite black magic, because they knew the use of, among the wasn't just Israelite in the Arab imagination. It was the Israelites would give a number to a numerical value to letters, and they knew that these letters were often used in what they called Solomonic black magic, the magic of jinn. There were some who made that type of accusation, but the majority of Arabs didn't say that is positive proof that he's a magician. They thought, no, this is a music. That language is music that has meaning. And it's like, I once heard, interestingly, was a professor at Princeton. He said, it was actually Yudovich, which is odd enough. I mean, I'm being taped, so I shouldn't say it. But he said, when Arabs come and tell me the Quran is eloquent or not eloquent, I don't believe them, because the Arabs of today don't have the relationship to Arabic like the Arabs of Muhammad. So, of course, he meant by that to say that, Arabs of today are not qualified to talk about to say anything about the eloquence of the Quran. But I took it, he actually has a point, because unless you know Arabic in a very different relationship, your statement about whether that Quran strikes you as eloquent or not is just impressionistic. You don't have anything to compare it with. And it's just a matter of, how it strikes your heart. Yeah, so...
Okay. It's fascinating because this connection to nature, because you talked about the significance of the Hajj and just going around in the circumambulation, and then even with our prayer, it changes throughout the year. So we know that there's a change in seasons because of that, or when
That's
Ramadan,
a really good point. Yeah.
or when Ramadan is, it's changing throughout the year. So there's always this cosmic connection from a very real and daily part.
Well, that Muslims, among the fields that they really wrote a great deal about, and is cosmology, and of course these makhtutat today, they're not published because the whole field, but there is no question that the Quran sparked a deep interest between the relationship between meaning and the cosmos itself. And the style of the Quran is at the heart of that. I mean, I don't know of any other civilization that has written about, until the modern age, which uses an experimental method and so on. But if you exclude the modern age, Muslims civilizationally have written about nature more than any other civilization I'm aware of. The amount of manuscripts are enormous, and you know, and anyway, and that has not. I mean, we have how many scholars who've actually paid attention to the whole issue of Muslim studies on nature. I mean, I maybe what's his name, Saliba. Would he be one? I don't know. Meet too many. There was. Yeah, I actually don't know that many. I mean, maybe Saliba would be one. George Saliba, wasn't he? He studied like.
He did like science.
Yeah.
History of science.
History of science and stuff like that. But thank you.
I'd like to ask about a book that you may recommend regarding knowing the Prophet from the Dhikr, because I think these days the Dhikr of the Prophet is like everywhere. It's like sporadic, like with the apps. It's like
That's a really good question. I don't know any book in English that has tried to write. Because
there was one translation from Ghazali.
Oh, Fiqh al-Sira?
No.
Oh, you mean the huh?
Like a blue color.
Oh, but yeah, okay. Is it the Remembrance book?
I could go and see if I have it.
Yeah, it's what Grace is referring to is Islamic Text Society translated Ghazali's. Hamid al-Ghazali, the old Ghazali, his book on the Dhikr of the Prophet. But the thing is that a lot of modern Muslims, when they read it, they can't, they read, okay, the Prophet said X when he woke up. The Prophet said X when he would eat. The Prophet, but no one presents a humanistic narrative. And the closest thing that I know of is Muhammad al-Ghazali, not the old one, my teacher, rahmahullah, wrote a book called Fiqh al-Sira, and I heard that it was translated to English.
Yeah, it was.
It was?
You
Fiqh
got me a
al-Sira?
copy.
I did?
A while ago, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So different from Fiqh al-Sunnah?
No. Oh, no, it is, yeah. No, it's called, Rami's referring to a different book of his. Fiqh al-Sira. If I got a copy to read, so it was translated, read that.
Here.
Huh?
I probably have it outside.
Yeah. Then the other thing is, many years ago, not few, but I did a seminar that I know it's recorded, and probably you guys haven't posted. It's called A Humanistic Approach to the Life of the Prophet. Listen to these. It was very long.
These are the halaqas on the Prophet?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have them.
Yeah. How many hours was it?
It was more than 4. It's been a while since I've listened to it.
Yeah.
It's maybe 4 to 8.
Yeah. I remember it was listen to these halaqas, because I talk about the Prophet ﷺ as a human being, and that's the part that is completely, especially in the age of Islamophobia, where the Islamic tradition, because Muslims did not censor and cleanse the tradition, they were too honest. They pretty much gathered whether something came from an enemy or a friend, they preserve it. They preserve everything. They unlike, for instance, a lot of the Christian tradition, a lot of the Jewish tradition, which is anything that was from the other perspective was lost, completely cleansed. So all the literature, we have to have the discoveries like Qumran and so on to get even a glimpse of what was the other perspective. But in the Islamic tradition, you find, because Muslims preserved everything, there are reports that say the most outlandish things. And what the Islamophobes did is that they did for what we should have done. We should have ourselves read through Bukhari and adopted a critical perspective towards Bukhari and critiqued the parts of Bukhari that should not be there. Not censored it, but critiqued it. So what the Islamophobes did, because we're lazy, they actually read through Bukhari, picked all the disgusting stuff and put it together and said, here's your prophet. And what helped them in this is the way we write our seerah, which is basically prophet, hijrah, battle, die. Which is fine, which was fine in an age where England is occupying your land, France is occupying your land, Holland is occupying your land, Israel is occupying Palestine. So it's a way of writing seerah that encourages you to resist militarily. But the problem, though, is that if you're looking beyond the military, so beyond the act of resistance, it doesn't convince your kids. So, yeah, I understand why modern Muslims wrote their seerah that way. And they went to Ibn Ishaq, Seerah Ibn Hisham, and Ibn Ishaq, who's been is problematic at so many levels. And basically they took it and but the existence of someone like Ibn Ishaq was okay, or Ibn Hisham later on was okay, in light of, the writings of At-Tirmidhi and Al-Shama'il, because it all equaled each other out, and the Muslim shuyukh before colonialism would not teach you just the battles, but would teach you the shama'il, which are the qualities of the Prophet. And that is why from every Islamic culture you go to, other than Wahhabi culture, you find enormous amount of poetry. You find all the Sufi chants, all the Sufi music about the love of the Prophet. Loving the Prophet. We love the Prophet. We love the Prophet. Everything that good that happens in the world happens because of the Prophet. Everything bad that happens because the Prophet, we don't love the Prophet. And love the Prophet and love his grandson. And this doesn't come from a vacuum. It wasn't that they loved the Prophet because the Prophet fought Badr and Uhud and Hunayn, and they loved the Prophet because of Shama'il, because of the beauty of his character. And they understood him as an ideal person. So, for instance, I'll give you, I know this is well beyond what you asked, but it's just an opportunity to say something useful. I got like a message from some, I get these messages, I call them snotty kids, because I don't know if they're being snotty or they don't realize they're being snotty, or they realize they're being snotty. But you said that the Prophet married Maria Qibtiyya, who's given to him as a slave girl. What's your evidence? Who are you to ask me what's your evidence? I mean, I've been a professor for 30 years, and I have to provide evidence for what I say and nobody is writing me out of nowhere. I mean, but anyway, that's. I have another point about that. The point is this. One of my teachers, a long time ago, this is before I even came to the U.S., so I wasn't even had not been exposed to Orientalist writings or whatever. So I was reading this stuff about Ghazawat and Sabi and so on, and I had met some kid, one of these Salafi kids, who was. They were having a discussion in the mosque that when we defeat Israel and we liberate Palestine, do we enslave their women or not enslave their women? So, I'm like sitting listening to this stupid debate, and of course, the companions of the Prophet enslaved women, and I remember that the idea of the Prophet coercing women to have sexual relations bothered me enormously. I had not been exposed to Orientalism or the West or anything. So I went to one of my teachers and it said, I have a question about that. And I never forget his response. He said, you got to know the Prophet personally, through his moral character. You know what he says about insulting women, striking women, hurting women. You know what he says about the impermissibility of coercion. Can you imagine your prophet raping the woman? Because if you can, then there's no reason you should be a Muslim. It shocked me. I felt so embarrassed to ask the question. That deep, intimate sense of who the Prophet was. And once you pose the question, once I heard his answer, it's like, yeah, this man was in a state of dhikr all the time. This man who said that if the tears of an orphan fall in the lap of God, this man who says that who sees a donkey being exerted and comes to the donkey's aid, and just endless stories that I talk about, some of them in these halaqas. And then imagine him raping a woman and a woman screaming and yelling and he's coercing her. Either you can imagine it, then you shouldn't be a Muslim, because then it's unethical to follow such a situation. Or you know who the Prophet is and you can't imagine it. So it blows my mind. And when I see Muslims, these snotty kids, well, I'm not, did the Prophet, it's like, what the hell? Shut up, go get an education or get faith. Because if you're asking this question, you're not a Muslim. I mean, it's like parrots. They listen to Islamophobes and they parrot what Islamophobes say without a brain, without even the effort in some research that they could exert, and research not on the net, because I discovered from among students today that when you tell them, shake your butt and get off your butt and go to the library, not the net. Because the net, any idiot can put anything on the net. And the text you read in the net are not authenticated. Meaning that, you could change all types of texts and put whatever you want in them. It's but whatever. I mean, I don't, none of this had anything to do with your question. But I don't have any beef in seeing morons remain Muslim. If you're a moron, good riddance. Alhamdulillah. Go be whatever you want to be.
Yeah, I think it's also part of the greatest challenge that Muslims from my generation and subsequent generations are facing, because we're raised and inundated with so much dogmatic fear that I think a lot of Muslims forget how they don't even think they have the right to think for themselves, that it's a matter of faith than to just it's not about ethics, it's this is the Prophet, and we've essentially, without actually, we say we don't, but in reality we deify the Prophet. We don't look at him as human. So if he were to rape, if he were to murder, if he were to pillage, it becomes, if you have faith, that stuff isn't going to turn you away from being Muslim, because in the end you don't want to burn in hell.
And I blame the Wahhabis for that, because the Wahhabis, basically, the way they presented Islam is as if, oh, it's okay for your Prophet to rape, and you still have to be a Muslim. And we saw the result was ISIS. But, I mean...
Because it's the thing is, if you're saying, well, God knows best, then you shut off your intellect. And that's how that dogmatism works, is God knows best, so if you're confronted with this kind of stuff, just shut up, put your head down, and be Muslim, because the hereafter is going to be better anyway, so it's better just to...
I mean, of course, there's a difference between, like, when I'm approached by, like, once upon a time I used to teach undergraduates, right? And so you're approached by a lot of kids who are honestly confused, and they're respectful, and they're not snotty. You react very differently to them than, kids that just... it's as if they're doing you a favor by remaining Muslim, and I think that's a, if you, so I mean you're right, because it's not, I don't want to sound too harsh, especially that your generation, people of, especially Muslims who grew up in the West, have enormous challenges. I mean, I've even add the challenges of this new phenomena of white Muslims who effectively, white converts, who effectively push that paradigm of morality, the idea that morality is a Western morality, and so it's okay if we don't adopt. So, for instance, that you find white convert Muslims who say, so what, yeah, the Prophet had a slave, and we have to accept that the Prophet owned a slave. And yeah, when I think, like, okay, so a Muslim kid who grew up in the United States that hears what they think is a very respectable authority, a white convert, talk about that the Prophet owned a slave, and it didn't count as rape in their age, because they get very confused. But I go to the people I always blame. Can you guess who? Rich people.
The list is long. Oh, okay.
Because if they would have donated money to allow us to actually educate people properly, we wouldn't be in this mess. I mean, come on. I mean, it's been a dream. When did I do that? The Halaqa on the humanistic approach to the life of the Prophet.
That was when I was a kid. That was a long.
Very long time. Do you know it's been a dream that long that I just get the financial support to turn that into a book?
Yeah.
Just something as simple as that.
I blame Azhar too.
Yeah, we could blame us. I'm okay with that.
Weren't they gonna fund you at one point?
They were. They were gonna get. Well, yeah, they were gonna get behind me and all that. But anyway. So your comment sparked a lot of stuff.
What time is it?
9:20.
Dr. Brown's book just got published on the.
I know. You think?
What's the book?
I haven't read it yet.
Which one?
Pre-ordered
I'll tell you.
John
I'll tell you
Oh,
when I'm not
slavery.
on tape.
So we have 7 minutes.
I was asked
We want to
to
finish at 9:30.
I have a question. This is the one that I've been saving up for a while.
Oh.
But I just never had the opportunity to ask it.
Is it a long one?
It's a short question, but
Well, ask it and we'll see if we can
we'll
do
see.
it now
Yeah,
or
I
next
mean,
time.
I can be patient. It's been 2
No,
years.
ask
I
it.
can.
No, ask it. Come on.
2
No, no,
years?
It's nothing.
no, I'm saying like if
Yeah,
you
you
don't
just
ask
waited
it-
6 years or 8 years.
I've
Maybe more than 2. 2 years. It might be 3 or 4.
Sorry.
No, it's really just about using language of aesthetics to describe ethics. Like, you know, in your writings, like, beauty is good, and I mean, I know the Arabic works that way, but why have you chosen to translate that in English?
I'll give you the short version of the answer. Virtue ethics. If you come to Thousand Oaks, there are a couple of titles I'll because I have the books in Thousand Oaks. A couple of titles that I can that will answer that. Virtue, the beauty is not it's not just an aesthetic term. It's a term that connotes a kind of virtue. And I believe when because it's actually one of the reports, it's in the context of Surah Duha, that Allah Jamilun Hibbu Jamal, that it occurs in the context of a reference to a type of virtue ethics. So when the version of this hadith عن عطية عن أبي سعيد عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله جميل يحب الجمال ويحب أن يرى أثر نعمته على عبده ويبغض البؤس والتبأس. So Allah is beautiful, Allah loves beauty, Allah loves to see the signs of His blessings upon people, and Allah doesn't like the miserable and those who pretend to be miserable. This is typical reference to the type of discourse that we use when we talk about virtue ethics. And so that's a short answer to that question. But if since inshallah you'll come to Thousand Talks before you head back, I'll save the longer version till then, because virtue ethics is a critical field today.
This has to be recorded. You can't just like have it the audience of one.
Oh,
Agreed.
You record everything, so you record it.
I'm sure you'll follow us.
No, I know, but this is a really long explanation.
Yeah, because and there is one of the chapters of the Conference of the Books I write about that, and the book that I'm hoping to write now is entirely on that, meaning that I've started it, but what I mean by beauty, the thing that I'm working on now, pray that Allah helps me and I finish it. But it's when I use that word beauty, and of course I am drawing upon the like السبحات الروحانية, a book that it's a manuscript by, what's his last name? Anyway, when you come over, when you come to those, I'll show it to you. Entire book about the relationship between al-jamal wa husn al-khuluq, and so it is, and husn al-khuluq is virtue. It's not the ethics of wrong and right, but it is beyond what is wrong and right, but what a virtuous human being would actually perform. And that is precisely what I mean by the word the beautiful, or al-hasan, or al-ihsan. It is not simply what you do to avoid being ugly or being a sinner or being wrong, but it is when you reach out to kamaliyah and you seek after perfection. It's like among the Imam al-Jilani, when he's asked to define the jamal, well, it was in the context of Allah is beautiful, Allah's beauty, commenting on that. And he said, أَن تَتَخَلَّقْ بِخُلُقِ اللَّهِ. Now, so what he means by that is a sifat, that you reach out to embody the divine characteristics. Now, obviously, he doesn't mean wrong and right here, and he doesn't mean becoming God. But b'khuliqillah is that you seek after that you are in a normative quest for the type of perfection that is God, the type of virtue that is God. And that is a very pervasive theme. And a lot of people a lot of people just think beauty is just simply an aesthetic term, and that's not true. It has a long tradition in virtue ethics. Do you know Professor Jonathan Zaslav at the law school? He taught a course on law and virtue ethics. He teaches it from a very Jewish perspective, but it's very, very interesting. It's the type of course that maybe, inshallah, when you're a law professor, you should put together. I thought of plagiarizing it, but I don't think it's very collegial to do that.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. You've been waiting. Why didn't you ask that question earlier?
I don't. We were just trying.
Since the publisher of conference of the books, that I keep. Well, I've heard that so many. Isn't beauty just subjective? That's because what you have in mind about beauty is not it's not just an aesthetic thing. It's not a matter of taste. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Alhamdulillah. Okay.